Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Taking the Lead. I'm your host, Ken Jacobs of Jacobs Consulting and Executive Coaching, but you know that. And you also know, unless this is your first time with us, that on Taking the Lead, we get to interview top executives, top leaders from the world of PR, but we don't talk much about PR marketing, comms, or advertising. We talk about something that to me is actually a lot more interesting, which is this notion of leadership, leading yourself, leading your teams, leading others, leading your clients, all those good things. And we have with us today someone who I think of as an Uber leader, and I don't mean the car brand, the pickup brand. I mean an Uber leader. It's Corey duBrowa, the global CEO of Burson, also a member of the executive committee of WPP. I'm not going to tell you all his titles, but I will tell you he had senior roles at BCW, the BCW group of companies, Google, Alphabet, Salesforce, Starbucks, Wagner Edstrom, now known as WE, and that's where our paths first crossed when I was at Maloney and Fox. He has been honored with so many honors. I can't read them all. You'll have to look on the Burson website. But, six Sabres, four PR Week Global Awards, Silver Anvils, inducted into the PR News Hall of Fame, a Provoke Lifetime Achievement Award. I guess he's provoking people for his whole lifetime. A member of the U of Oregon School of Journalism's Hall of Achievement, and November of 2023, the PR Week Hall of Fame. He serves on the University of Oregon Foundation's Board of Trustees and an organization I very much admire, the PR Museum. He's on their Board of Trustees. So, everyone, welcome to the podcast. Corey duBrowa.
Ken, it's great to see you. Thanks for asking me.
My pleasure. We're going to dig right in. What were the three most important leadership lessons, not PR, not comp, leadership lessons you've learned in 2024?
Well, goodness, I would say first, be ready for anything. For example, the possibility of a merger if your boss asks you to do it. Secondly, is be a listener. There's a reason why we have two ears and one mouth, and I think that should be a signal to everyone what's more important. And in the words of the late Harold Burson, to be in the know. I should put air quotes around that. I can't tell you how many newsletters I subscribe to, but Casey Newton's Platformer, Ben Thompson's Stratechery, Eleanor Hawkins's Axios Communicators, which is terrific, Brian Stelter's Reliable Sources, they're all required reading. All of that helps us to be able to, I think, not just do our jobs, but be humans moving about the planet in 2024.
Excellent point. And I will admit that when I do training on leadership, I do the Harold Burson quote about two ears and one mouth. I do in a very bad Mississippi accent, I'll admit. But I do find him inspiring. We're going to talk about the iconic Harold Burson in a little bit. But in your position and your past few positions, you're not just leading teams or followers or groups. You are leading leaders, including one of our guests here on Taking the Lead, Anna Maria DeSalva. So I'll ask you what I asked her. What's your secret sauce in leading leaders who may be as experienced as you or even as talented as you?
Or hopefully even better, Ken. The point of creating a leadership team, I think, is to do just that, right? Empower your colleagues, empower these leaders to do what they're best at. So to me, a leadership team by definition is made up of subject matter experts. And so, I think the smartest thing that you can do is let them lead, provide guidance or direction or a steer. And then, as a leader of leaders, you're really an orchestra conductor rather than a player in the orchestra. What's the famous quote, right? Like, hire the best people and then get out of their way. So I've spent a career getting out of the way of many smart and talented people, many of whom, like you said, were as good, if not better, than I was at any aspect of the job that I was doing. So with that said, I do think that a good leader needs to hold senior leaders accountable for high standards, not be afraid to kind of roll up their sleeves and get in the trenches in areas where they might need assistance. I was thinking about, Ken, an article recently, Paul Graham's post about founder mode. I don't know if you read that, but to me, the founder mode post proves that two things can be true. You can allow your leaders to do their thing, and then selectively dive in as needed so that you're close enough to the substance of the work to be of value.
Great point. So many of us in the PR industry, we'll do a little PR industry reference, were thrilled when it was announced that the agency would be named for the iconic Harold Burson again. And that goes beyond people who worked at Burson and BCW and just people in the field who were so moved by his leadership example. So, what are his leadership lessons or quotes from Harold that most inspire you, and why?
I only met Harold once in an Arthur Page meeting years ago when I was at Google, but it was a very formative encounter with one of my industry heroes. And, Harold once said that public relations is fundamentally a problem-solving discipline. So it perfectly centers exactly what we're here to do for our clients, solve problems with communication solutions in the most creative way to create sort of breakthrough moments for them, for their brands, for their companies. We talked for a minute before, Ken, about this idea of being in the know. And I think, to me, that's more than a leadership lesson. That's like a life lesson. And so knowledge that helps inform client counsel, the context in which that counsel exists, but it also helps build and nurture relationships with clients, with colleagues, and with media in areas of shared interest. So to me, all of this is just a byproduct of relentless curiosity, which is critical, I think, for any endeavor, not just communications or public relations. Around our place, we like to call sort of the aspirational goal being a learn it all as opposed to a know it all. And I think that's I'm the son of a teacher. So for me, that really resonates. That's a great aspirational goal for our people, for our culture, and for our company.
And let's hear it for the teachers. Underappreciated, but well, except maybe by their former students. So, we can see just by looking at that shot, those big amps, and anyone who knows anything about you knows that music plays a very big role in your life. You were a music journalist for decades. You've got more than 1,000 bylines. Rolling Stone, GQ, published your first book about music. How has your involvement in music, do you think, made you a more effective leader?
Shameless plug, Ken. It's called
Yes.
This is the book right here. It's called An Ideal for Living, and it's an exploration of the EP, not the LP or album, not the single, but the extended play, which is, as my wife says, a niche interest, but an interesting historical artifact industry. So you can pick that up both on the HozakRecords.com website as well as Amazon as a Kindle object. Look, I've learned a great deal about a totally crucial part of my day job or my profession, creativity, during this 25-year side hustle as a music journalist, and really how that creativity manifests for me is storytelling, which I think is really critical to our work. So watching artists create and then bring the thing that they've created into the world, right? Whether it was music or books or films or art, ideas, inventions, all those things, it's really afforded me a different perspective around how we create ideas, campaigns, and energy on behalf of our clients. So it's also given me enormous respect for and probably an obsession with the creative process. So, around the room here, your listeners and viewers won't be able to see it, but are framed original lyrics. And the reason for this, aside from their historic or sort of creative interest value, is the idea that with handwritten or hand-typed objects, you can see the creative process evolving, and you get a sense for maybe what the artist intended at the start of the process, the gyrations they went through to get to the end product, and how much refinement or iteration was required to get there. So that journey is endlessly fascinating for me, and that's what I've been able to apply to the day gig and to our work with clients.
And are you still finding time for music?
In my personal life, I do. I mean, I certainly find time to go see live music, or I have many friends from years of having written about music. Actually, two of those friends wrote the foreword and the afterword to the book. And so being able to selectively sort of plug into that industry periodically, go see a show, to get really excited when, new music is released into the world. Maybe there's a particularly amazing release day, but that's the fun part of it. But certainly my day job keeps me plenty busy. I don't have time for the byline business anymore. And, there's a possibility, Ken, that the next generation of writers is probably better suited for what's being released right now anyway. I love to see them get as excited about the music that's new to their lives as I was back when I was first writing about it.
So it just got me thinking. I don't know if you're aware, we're living down the shore in Asbury Park.
Oh my
Great,
God.
great music world. But in the convention center, which I hope you're familiar with, there are three internal, I guess I call them marquees. Marquees. What's playing here at the convention center? What's at the Wonder Bar? What's at the Stone Pony? My wife and I go through and look at the bands. Don't know them, don't know them, don't know them. Oh, we know them. Oh, no, it's not Led Zeppelin. It's a tribute band. Okay, don't know them, don't know them. So we don't know all the groups. That said, there is something, there's an excitement in living somewhere where music or art or theater are being created, I think, very much
100%.
so.
The
Yeah. So
vibrancy of the community. And in your community's case, I mean, certainly, Bruce Springsteen, native son to Asbury Park. I saw a People magazine overhead photo of the show that he just played there. What an unbelievable event. Just the sheer volume of human beings coming to see Bruce, at a very late stage in his career, but his just, he's written an extraordinary catalog of amazing songs over the years. So it's very cool to be a part of that when you can tap into something magic, I think.
for those unaware, that's the See Here Now Festival. And we've heard that up to 35,000 people visited our fair city by the sea. So that's lovely. Let's talk about something I think a little less lovely. There
Yeah.
has been pushback, especially this year, against DE&I programs, DEI elimination of DEI efforts in corporations, organizations, to me, especially concerning certain states, certain universities. What should the PR industry be doing to assure that at least that industry continues to achieve DEI goals?
Well, I think the most important part of the conversation that seems to have gone missing is how critical DEI goals are to the business of the company in question. And when I think about my career, whether it was, as you said very generously at the top of this, at Google in tech, or at Starbucks in the restaurant and food industry, or, what I'm doing now, being able to represent the whole of humanity for our clients, for our companies, and really to be able to connect the products and services that these companies offer to their customers, and frankly, new customers, maybe underserved parts of the community, or parts of our population who, for a variety of different reasons, have not had access to those products or services. That's our job. That's what we do. And so I think when we step away from these commitments, what we miss is the business imperative to make sure that we are doing the most that we can to effectively sort of create bridges from these companies or clients to their customer bases or future customer bases. And so that's how I think about it, Ken. I think about, in a world that might be turning the other way for reasons that are not related to business. Maybe they're reasons that are related to politics, or, to the way that politics and society intersect with one another. I think it's our job to sort of look at the values and guiding principles of the client companies that we represent, and frankly, the company that we represent, right? And what Harold Burson stood for, who was a DEI champion even before we were calling it that, for decades. And so I think that, I owe it to my stakeholders, whether it's our employees, WPP shareholders, our clients, to do the best that I can to make sure that we're teasing out sort of what are your values, guiding principles, and make sure that you stay connected to those, even when moments where it's not popular, fashionable, or frankly difficult, in the public sphere to be able to do that.
Thank you. And I did not know that about Harold. So good to know. Okay, so speaking of difficult, we're going to ask you a question easy for me to ask, maybe difficult for you to answer, but I'm going to ask you to answer as honestly as possible. Share one or two really significant leadership mistakes, challenges, faux pas that you made, and then of course how you recovered and what you learned from that. And the more honest, the better.
Okay. Well, I can think of one right off the top of my head that might be germane to this. So, I think that a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that you can't lead a project or you can't do a job or fulfill a role because you aren't an expert in this area. I can think of a lot of examples over the years when various bosses sort of threw me into the deep end of the pool. And my initial reaction, Ken, would have been like, I don't have the experience to do this. When I was at Nike, I was in a regional leadership role for Latin and South America. The Nike brand was effectively sort of deciding to buy back the rights to distribute its brand in countries like Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru, Mexico. And I was a part of a task team whose job it was to effectively go in, renegotiate those distribution deals, and take the brand back. And so I remember my boss at the time sitting me down in his office and basically saying, this was before we went to Brazil for the first time, to effectively buy back the brand, to open offices in Sao Paulo and Rio and sort of get it going again. He was like, look, I have 3 rules of the road. Don't lose this airline ticket. It was a very expensive trip, back before there were digital tickets.
It was printed, right?
Ticket. Don't make the papers and don't make me have to bail you out of jail. I think he was humorous about it, but look, we were all young people, and I think that on these 2-3 week trips into the regions, there was certainly plenty of opportunity to sort of get ourselves distracted or into trouble. But I think that what he was really telling me was, look, none of you really have the expertise in the region or the cultures or frankly the company. I was probably with Nike at 2 years at that point. But I have faith that as a team, you'll be able to get this done. And so everything Ken was really learning on the job. And it was so affirmative to me that at a time where, I felt like I'm going to make huge mistakes. And we did make big mistakes for sure. We overpaid for office space. We probably didn't hire the right leaders in some instances and had to make changes along the way, like any number of things that were tactical errors. But I think that ultimately, what we were able to do to effectively sort of liberate the Nike brand across those countries and region, and what it means to the company now, where I can look back with some pride and kind of say, look, when, Nike has its swoosh on the Brazilian soccer kit, right? Like that was the first step of many to getting to that outcome. And so, we made plenty of mistakes. We didn't have the expertise, but we did have the collective energy, ideation and sort of belief in what the brand was. And I think that overcame any of the dumb errors that we made along the way.
But they didn't have to bail you out, which I was hoping that's where this story was going. I was really
I don't think anybody wants to spend time in a Brazilian prison, quite frankly. So,
no. But what lessons we learn from there? All right. Last question. What are the top 3 things any leader should do to become a more effective and inspiring leader in 2025?
well, look, I think that the tenets of sound leadership are pretty timeless. So I have a few evergreen tenets. One of those is I think effective leaders understand that every single person in your organization is responsible for the overall success of the company. It's really team sport, back to my analogy from Nike. And I think you want to, as a leader, make sure that your people know that so that they feel pride of ownership in the organization's success and that they're inspired to work hard so that the team achieves that success. I'm a coach's kid. I talked before about my dad being a teacher. So it's been drilled into me forever that it's really we, not me. What we do is team sports. So I think it's important to convey that to your team as a leader. So that's thing one. Thing two, Ken, is stay curious. I've been at this leadership thing now for more than 3 decades, and I never have stopped learning, right? Every day I'm in the role, whatever the role is, I'm learning something new. And I feel like when you've stopped learning, you've probably stopped living to some extent. So I think to be in touch with your curiosity is to be in touch with your humanity. And so ask questions, discover things, push for answers or sources, be curious. You'll be amazed at what you learn. Last thing is specifically for 2025, I think it's going to be an imperative for leaders to ensure that their teams are fluent in all things AI. As I've said before on other podcasts or in other interviews, I don't think that AI is going to replace us. I think that people who are more skilled at AI are going to be the people who replace us. And so to me, all the learning should already be underway and really ramp up to 2025 so that there's less experimentation per se and there's more application of lessons learned. And to me, the aspect of this that's evergreen is to ensure that your teams are staying on top of the latest developments in their business, the latest technology, and sort of pushing to innovate. So those are the three things that are in my mind and that I'm sharing with my team going into our planning for 2025.
Yeah, and I think they go well beyond PR, comms, any of that, including AI. It's that I think the other thing that stood out for me, you said, when you're not learning, you're not living. And obviously, well, if you're not living, you're not leading. But if you're not learning, you're not leading.
Right.
So, Corey, it has been a pleasure. I've learned some things. Our guests have learned some things. If people want to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
Well, the best way to do so is via LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I think that, especially in this time of so much volatility in social media, LinkedIn for me continues to be a place that's relatively even in terms of the dialogue. And I think for those of us who are working stiffs, who are in this industry of public relations, public affairs, and communications, that's a great forum and becoming even more vibrant over time to connect over ideas, shared experiences, and sort of the way that we're pushing the profession forward. So that's the best way. You'll find me there.
Great. I encourage our viewers to do so. You will learn a lot from Corey's post. You've sensed his energy, his musicality. And I just want to thank you for being here again. And for anyone out there who wants to talk to me about leadership, about coaching, about agencies, KEN@JACOBSCOMM.com, or find me on LinkedIn. As I always say, there are a lot of Ken Jacobs on LinkedIn, but I think I'm the only one with some initials after my name. The first is PCP. Please do reach out there. And as we always say, until next time, keep on taking the lead.